If you were watching part 2, you'll have seen that we were playing Sonic Jam on the Gamecom. No, actually we were. Luckily this was the only Sonic game to appear on the Gamecom, and it's been pretty much forgotten by everyone. It technically never made it out of the US, except for my copy here. In fact, people just seem to ignore the fact that this game ever existed, and so far, well, it's worked. Seriously, look, I picked up a copy of Retro Gamer magazine one day. It's a commemorative issue for 20 years of Sonic the Hedgehog, and it includes various features about how Sonic came to be, but it also contains a timeline of all Sonic games released up until that point. If we go to 1998, Sonic Adventure. Well, that's not it. Not just that, it says under 1999 that Sonic the Hedgehog's Pocket Adventure was the first Sonic game to appear on non-Sega hardware. If only that were true. Not even MCV covered the game in its 25th anniversary feature. Seriously, how has this game gone untouched for so long? Not even YouTubers rank it in the worst Sonic game videos. Look, Retro Gamer did another retrospective 5 years later for the 25th anniversary, and still nothing. The Sonic Generations Collector's Edition features a DVD with the history of Sonic. Nothing. The Sega Archive. Nothing. It's not even acknowledged internally. I used to work for Sega of Europe, and not even Sonic Team remember it. If one is to move on and become better, one needs to acknowledge one's sins. But never mind. Let's move on to the official Sonic game to appear on non-Sega hardware. While the Gamecom certainly wasn't a competitor for the Game Boy, there was a console emerging in Japan that actually was. Well, that's a lie, technically there were two. There was also the WonderSwan, but that's for another video. No, I'm talking about something else. SNK had been working on a handheld console called the Neo Geo Pocket. Now this was only ever released in Asian markets, however, mainly because it debuted in 1998, exactly 1 week after Nintendo finally released the Game Boy Color. But within 6 months, the Neo Geo Pocket had been replaced with its own colour version, and with it came one of my favourite Sonic games, even if it wasn't actually technically the first on non-Sega hardware. Seriously, out of all Sonic games, this is probably my favourite, or at least one of them. With a lot of Sonic games, they're sometimes very momentum-based, which often makes it feel like every level is on ice. Not always, but sometimes. With this you get a bit more precise platforming, although granted it's at the expense of speed. Sadly, the Neo Geo Pocket Color didn't last very long either. Despite reasonably good sales, it was dead within a year. In fact, so were Sega's console days. The Dreamcast wasn't really performing as well as it could have done had the timing been better, and the company was on the brink of just throwing in the towel and focusing solely on software. A year later in 2001, Sonic finally made his first appearance on Nintendo hardware with Sonic Advance. But there were technically Sonic appearances on Nintendo hardware before this. Just like Rule 34 of the internet states that if it exists there is probably porn of it, you know who you are, and your mothers are very disappointed in you. I can't even show any of it. Look at this. Just so if a video game exists, then there is probably a bootleg of it, such as the ever-popular Sonic Adventure 7 on the Game Boy Color. It's difficult to know when this game came out because the manual is technically from Sonic 3D Blast, which incidentally got its own Game Boy hack in the form of Sonic 3D Blast 5. It's actually almost better than the Gamecom game, which is saying, well, not a lot actually. In 2003, Sonic Advance 2 was released alongside one of the GBA's oddities, the Game Boy Advance video series, which brought the Sonic X cartoon to a device that you could take with you, rather than on a VHS or a DVD. It may have been compressed to hell, but in the days before MP4 players, video iPods or smartphones, the notion of popping a cartridge in your GBA to watch a cartoon wherever you wanted was amazing. Although we never got them in the UK, of course, because f*** us and our tea-drinking, fish and chips eating, pip-pip cheerio-ing crooked teeth faces, right? Oddly, these weren't compatible with the Game Boy player on the GameCube, so you couldn't watch these on your TV even if you wanted to. You had to enjoy them on an actual GBA in all their 240 by 160 resolution goodness. But they weren't the only handhelds to arrive in 2003, oh no. McDonald's signed a deal with Sega to provide a series of basic LCD games in Happy Meals, and I happen to have here the Sonic game. I don't actually know what it's called, it doesn't seem to have a name. I shall call it Sonic's Happy Meal Adventure. Yeah, that'll do. Now these appeared in shiny TV commercials with Sonic urging us to get happy.
Impressive, isn't it?
Some busting, fast action, fun, wicked Sega handheld games. Now there's one in every McDonald's Happy Meal.
Get happy. happy.
I'm trying, Sonic. I'm trying to be happy, but the weight of pressure caused by consumerism is overwhelming to the point where I feel like I actually need a £2 meal of processed ingredients that once resembled food and a plastic toy made by the lowest bidder just so I can satisfy my instant gratification, poison little mind like a drug addict who needs a hit. F it. Give me the burger. Give me the I'll eat it. Is this what you want? I'll eat it. I'll eat it until we can. What were we doing? Oh, hey, games! I hate to say it, but I actually prefer this to the Tiger LCD games. At least I know what I'm doing with this. Well, sort of. Although it does appear that I can't actually lose, so long as I just keep pushing the button. It's like a metaphor for life and mediocrity. Then again, this is from McDonald's, so what did you expect? Before completing the Gameboy Advance trilogy, the first Sonic Advance was ported to a new and exciting platform, a mobile phone capable of playing games. Games that came on physical media that you could go into a game store and buy over the counter. It was called the Nokia NGage. The NGage was an attempt to fill a hole in the market that Tiger spotted with the Gamecom. A new generation of gamers were becoming permanently attached to mobile phones. In fact, gamers in general were just getting older. Nokia decided to market specifically to this post-Generation XY audience with familiar titles like Splinter Cell, Tomb Raider, The Sims, FIFA, Call of Duty, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic N was a mobile version of Sonic Advance, which had been slightly modified to run on the system, and to be fair, it was actually well received. The problem was, the NGage wasn't. The clunky design of the phone was ultimately its downfall. It lasted only 2 years and Sonic N was the only Sonic game to make it to the system, although there were some other early mobile versions of Sonic, like this one. Japan, on the other hand, got a whole host of mobile exclusives, including Sonic Tennis, Sonic Golf, Sonic Speed, Sonic Fishing, Sonic Billiards, Sonic Bowling and Sonic's Napoleon, amongst others. The early mobile versions aren't that bad, to be honest. They're actually quite enjoyable. I just wouldn't want anyone to walk in and catch me enjoying them, much like the work of Christy Mack. In 2004, Sonic completed the Advance trilogy before finally coming full circle. In 2006, 15 years after its initial release, the Game Boy Advance received a release of Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis, which is essentially the same game as the original, just without any sense of blast processing. It's pretty laggy, and considering the power of the GBA, it was surprising that they'd somehow managed to butcher what was already being considered a retro game, particularly as they'd done so well with Sonic Advance. The story obviously goes on from there. Sonic has appeared in hundreds of games on consoles, handhelds and mobile. The original Mega Drive games have been remastered dozens of times and appear on mobile titles that have been developed by the guys behind Sonic Mania. There have been great games, but they've sometimes been overshadowed by some not so great games. However, if you take anything from this video, please let it be that Ogilvy Hedgehog Jr. has a vast and entertaining back catalogue, and despite what you may see in other YouTube videos, Sonic 06 is not the worst Sonic game ever. Despite all the stumbles throughout the years, we continue to love the blue spiky one because he is lovable and he's cute. And to be honest, people are gullible enough to do anything a cute character wants them to do. Watch, look. Hello, Bluey. Hello. Say hello to YouTube. just tell them to subscribe.